And welcome everyone. Welcome once again. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning from wherever you're tuning in. It's my honor and privilege to host this very special webinar, which is more like a podcast, more of an open conversation with none other than Mr. Craig Campbell. Where are you right now to share with our audience?
I'm in Arizona just now. There's a conference starting tomorrow, SEO Spring Training. So out here for that, looking forward to mingling and networking, and we've got mutual friends, Randy and stuff like that are here. So yeah, it's fun.
Good stuff, good stuff. Without further ado, I'm going to jump right into today's conversation. Before anything else, I was encouraging people because I wouldn't be much of a marketer if I wouldn't tell them to go to howbossmarketing.com and subscribe to the newsletter and get all the information out there about the upcoming events, past recordings, and all the good stuff that I'm planning to share. A couple of words about How Boss Marketing, which is essentially a platform, a hub, a go-to resources for small to medium-sized business owners, marketing savvy business owners, as I call them, but also for professionals, offering a platform to enhance their marketing skills, marketing knowledge, and most specifically, gain actionable insight and provide a supportive community. That's what I'm trying to build. And thank you so much for being part of it. Thank you so much for accepting today's invitation. Craig has been one of the most transparent SEOs out there throughout the years. Before I actually met him, before I actually connected with him, he has put out information out there that have helped me and a lot of other SEOs with their career, with their knowledge, and essentially making more money. I would like to thank you for that, Craig. When I asked you to come as a guest, you said right away, come on, man, let's do it. And I felt that you are more enthusiastic about it than I was, which is something that I truly appreciate. And I'm pretty sure we're going to have a blast today in this conversation because we're going to talk about everything else. For those who know, Craig has truly been transparent and talk about SEO tactics and techniques that others were afraid of talking or even admitting about them. So again, thank you. That being said, Craig, 30 seconds to a minute to introduce yourself.
So yeah, my name's Craig. I am based in Scotland, and I've been in the industry for probably 23, 24 years now. I started in 2001, and basically the same as most of you guys out there, just trying to find things out. How does all this stuff work? But I was fortunate. I got in very early. I went on to build up my own digital marketing agency, which I ran until 2015. So I had maybe 14 years of being either a freelancer or owning my own agency. I then really detested working with clients. I fucking hate clients with a passion. I think I got burnt out by it. And I really loved affiliate marketing. I felt after that apprenticeship, I was now in a position where I actually knew what I was doing. So I was able to then make choices in terms of how I go on and make money, whether that be through affiliate marketing, lead gen, building my own e-com stores and various other bits and bobs. And I went on to start building my personal brand. And now 2025, I do, over the years, as Emanuel says, I always felt, after I had learned, I found it really difficult to learn because YouTube and Facebook groups and things like this weren't really a thing when I was learning. So back in 2001, and pretty much right up until about 2010, a lot of this stuff was like forum-based training. The information wasn't that easily accessible, and I just felt that when these things were coming out, YouTube and various other bits, I was like, man, I want to help people avoid the mistakes, because I felt like I made a lot of mistakes in my career, and I don't mind telling people about them. Things have blown up, mistakes that we all do, shiny object syndrome. Emanuel will tell you, I'm like, guys, stop it. Like, please don't share all this shitty tools. Like, please only share stuff that you really, really, really value. And it's not for anything other than I just don't want people to fall into the same shit that I've always done, because I'm the same as everyone else. Shiny object syndrome, crazy ideas all over the place. And for me, a lot of people like me because I'm kind of honest, transparent, and probably say a lot of things that resonate with a lot of people. And there's, believe it or not, there's not a lot of that in the industry. There's a lot of bullshit. There's a lot of sales, snake oil, people giving you outdated tactics and stuff. And I don't think that's very fair. So that's pretty much my journey in a nutshell. So I'm now trying to give back and doing things like this to try and help people avoid the same bullshit I've done.
That's actually quite the topic of today's conversation, because we want to, touch base on some of the things that people should avoid, either being a business owner or even somebody from an agency who's just starting out in digital marketing, and especially right within the AI paradigm, a topic that has been covered previously and probably will be the topic of many, many webinars and podcasts to come, because it's easier it influences a lot, especially digital marketing. Two things I didn't ask. First of all, are you speaking at the Spring Conference training at the moment? Okay, what topic may I ask?
So I'm not actually doing a presentation this time. And the reason I'm not doing a presentation as such is because I know most of the audience. So I've been here several times before. I pretty much know everyone. So I'm actually doing a Q&A session with James Dooley, where I find it difficult because I don't know what you don't know, Emanuel. I don't know what pain points you've got. So for me to then present, I don't know, something on AI agents, for example, that might not be something that helps you. And obviously you're here to try and help the audience. And I think the Q&A session is something we want to try and see if we can maybe share some good tips and information rather than trying to present something completely, that might not be relevant to the audience. So, yeah.
Excellent. And the last thing I wanted to say is this is an interactive conversation. So we have the chat option that will be monitoring. Thank you, Sabrina, for monitoring and putting the relevant links out there. So feel free to interact, ask questions, and be a participant in this. Okay, I just wanted to see if we can do a poll and actually ask, do you know what an AI agent is? Because I was surprised to talk about some good professionals that were not exactly able to give this definition. Obviously, it's comprehensive. But let's start with what would be one of the biggest red flags you see or you have seen throughout your career. Red flags when a business hires an SEO or a marketing vendor, and that snake oil salesman really comes into mind when I say that.
Yeah, I think it may be unfair to say it like this, but I'm going to say it. I think 90% of the people that you're potentially going to hire are full of shit. Absolutely full of shit. They're over-exaggerating their experience, over-exaggerating what their abilities are. And I think, when it comes to hiring people, they come and they need a lot of training, a lot of guidance and stuff like that, because what you can't control is, like, let's say you had someone, Emanuel, and you trained them up and they're working the way that you want them to work on a project. When I hire them, who's to say you were even right? With your processes, who's to say they were dated? And sometimes when you get the people in, it's not that they're deliberately lying all of the time. The person that they've worked for previously are doing outdated shit that doesn't actually work. That's a problem in itself. So I think trying to re-educate people and trying to get them to forget what they've previously been doing can sometimes prove to be difficult, and then they're arguing with you, and before you know it, there's a lot of back and forth, and you're like, I just want you to follow my process, and that is the job. And I see a lot of SEOs come into places and they think they know better. And you're like, you don't, you're covering your own ass here. Like, dude, you know, show me something that proves you're better. So I see a lot of that, and people are not willing to take new information on and try different methods and stuff. And I think you always, even, you know, for experienced people, I'm always learning new stuff. Things evolve, things change, strategies change, methods change. You've got to be open-minded, and a lot of people, in my opinion, are very fucking close-minded and are like, yeah, that shit worked. And you're like, yeah, it worked 3 years ago, mate, but it doesn't work now. It's proven, it's a fact. And a lot of people don't do testing. And you know, that's a big problem. They just hear things in theory and then, you know, stick by it, and they're not willing to change. So that's a big red flag I see a lot. And they're not willing to admit they're wrong. And I get, as a human being, for you to admit you're wrong and, you know, what you're doing is not the right way, there's someone doing it better. That's a human thing. But I think, you know, I'm always willing to say, Emanuel, if you've got something to share with me and you're doing something better, faster, more efficient than me, I want that. Like, please give me it. You know, I'm willing to take that on and implement it if I believe it works. And I think I see a lot of people not willing. They don't have that kind of mindset, if that makes sense. So that's one big thing that I see.
I think you're talking about the Shoshin mentality. Actually, there's a name for it, beginner's mindset. Approach everything with a beginner's mindset, because after 10 or 20 years of doing SEO, you're not exactly hyped about something new or never seen before. So it's easily to get, not be happy. But if you approach a new project with a beginner's mindset, okay, let's do an audit. Let's see how we can improve. Let's, research the audience. Let's research the competitors. Let's research the market and all those things. Like it will be your first project. I think that's the key. To your point, I found myself guilty of many of the things that you said, especially, all tactics, admitting that things don't work after you invested so much time, so much money after, and
Like,
God knows.
I'm going to keep saying that this works, even if it fucking doesn't. I'm going to fucking stick to it. So I get it.
It's not easy, and SEO is a lot of people are under the impression that SEO is somehow free, and I tell everyone SEO is many things. Free is not one of them, and it can get the most expensive channel out of all of them, and the most valuable resource is time. The time that it takes to create a solid campaign, to create a solid strategy. You need to actually do the stuff. AI helps you, but I'm not sure about you, but since AI, I've been working more, not less, than I used to before. Yeah, I was able to scale. I was able to do more things, but I'm not sitting by the pool at a conference in Arkansas myself, and some AI agent or some robot is doing the work. No, I still need to do that. I still interact with customers, with prospects, and the people I help with. I get their feedback, and to your point, transparency and having this open beginner Shoshin mentality will probably help you in the long run as an individual, not just as a professional in your career. Because we touch on that topic, what are the most common lies or exaggeration you have seen in SEO agency proposals? So not talking about general terms, some actually real examples, and I'm curious about the most recent ones, because any SEO have seen like a lot of proposals. Everybody exaggerates more or less, but what's something ridiculous that you have seen, and are you willing to share?
I'm trying to think of some of the most ridiculous things I've seen. I mean, in all proposals, things are all inflated in terms of cost, depth of work, all of that stuff. In reality, SEO, I'm not saying it's simple and easy, but when you look at these proposals, you're like, come on, man. Like, why are you charging X, Y, and Z for this? And why are you documenting that? And I think what I see in a lot of proposals, it's justification for the exuberant fee that they're charging. Now, like you say, a lot of people think SEO is free, cheap, whatever. what I see in proposals, because I can be transparent and I can say you've got tools, you've got masterminds to pay for, you've got all sorts of different costs to keep up to speed with your information, tools, proxies, all of the kind of hosting, all of this kind of stuff, and it all stacks up. Now, what you can't do in a proposal is be that granular. You know, I've got cost for this, I've got cost for that. So you're going to make up some bullshit in there. Why is it $5,000 a month? And you're going to say shit that you're not even doing to justify your fee. And you know, some of those things can be wild, absolute fucking wild. You know, outreach being one that people still put on there. You know, we're doing fucking 50 hours of outreach and all of that. And you're like, no, you're fucking not. Like, that's justification for 50 times $100 an hour. For, you know, to justify that part of the fee. So you see a lot of things like that, outreach or, you know, whatever it may be, rather than just be transparent and say, do you know what? I need to go buy links and there's a fucking cost for it. So that's the fee. Rather than you know, trying to justify it through other means. And, you know, I do a lot of consultations. And a lot of people say, Craig, you know, a lot of the consultations are actually around proposals and selling to clients and you know, all of this kind of stuff. And I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but I see some horrific things like outreach, like this, like that, digital PR, all of this kind of stuff. And they're charging digital PR prices and they're giving like fucking a GSA blast and stuff like that. I mean, some of the stuff is just wild that's out there. And yeah, it's crazy. But the client doesn't know any better. You could tell them anything. You know, when you're doing these proposals, they don't know what all of this granular shit means. The only person you're really fooling is yourself, and justifying your $5,000 fee by putting all of this kind of fluff in there, where I would typically be saying, you know, you're paying this and that gets you, you know, 2 or 3 hours of my time a month. You know, you need $2,000 a month for links, because that, you know, links just cost money. If you need some budget towards content, you know, that's that. And I think always be transparent and honest, and there's nothing wrong with being that way. I just think it works a lot better. I think what I see with business owners, small business owners and shit, they're not daft anymore. They know that there's a cost for links. And if you're saying that you're doing outreach and everything else, and everyone else is saying, do you know what, don't do outreach, because you could spend, you know, you could send 100 emails and you get one reply and you've still got to pay for the link. It's just not cost effective. It's not best use of time. And people are now becoming aware of more of the strategies and what works and what doesn't. And I think people are shooting themselves in the foot by saying these things in the quotes, where people, you know, they'll get. I've also worked on the flip side, where I've had companies pay me to look at quotes for SEO services, and they're like, Craig, tell me which one of these is actually telling me the fucking truth. And you're like, man, they're all full of shit. Like, don't go with any of them. They're all fucking telling bullshit on there. You know, I've seen things as ridiculous as like $400 a month for security shit on, you know, on the WordPress website, and you're like, like that WordFence costs you $200 a year. Like, why are you charging? It's not my job to shoot someone in the foot, because business is business. But I even see ridiculous things like that, and I'm like, man, please don't. Just tell the truth about buying links. Don't try and squeeze it all into WordFence and security and fucking hosting at fucking 500 quid a month and all this. You're like, your hosting costs $200 a year, mate, for the traffic and stuff you get. But it's, you know, they're trying to hide it behind all of this stuff.
For a 10-page website, usually. That's how it was. Thank you for going into so much details. Back in my agency days, I can tell you that the most successful campaigns were the ones where the business owner, the stakeholder, the one who invested the money, was highly involved. I truly believe also in transparency and just, you know, coming up with an argument why you justify your time and your investment. Usually comparing, you know, backlinks. It's hard to sell something abstract as backlinks, and what do they mean exactly? You know, what's the importance? How come, you know, leaving my LinkedIn profile backlink is not the same as, I don't know, from a PR or anything like that. Not to say that you said GSA Blast, they charging Reuters price for GSA. That's a reality. And unfortunately, people have a bad experience. They lose a lot of money and then they don't come back, or they say, oh, I tried that SEO, I paid a lot of money. I was with the agency so and so for 2-3 years. I paid like an arm and a leg and nothing happened, and all those backlinks and so forth, which doesn't build any kind of trust, doesn't really help anyone in the long term. Have a question here. I wanted to ask you later on, but I think now it's a good time since we're transitioning, because part of the audience and part of the people who are watching are also marketing savvy business owners who have skin in the game, who know a thing or two about SEO. They read probably did also a course. They might have known you and do some stuff themselves, but also want to hire. There's also people in agencies, people starting out right now as a service provider, as an SEO consultant, junior and whatnot, and can, if you're asking me, can be overwhelming a little bit with all the things that are happening right now. But before coming back with AI and all those things, let's say somebody has a budget of $2,000 US a month, $2K a month. What should they prioritize at the moment, given, for example, SEO or paid ads? Because that's a common question that happens in digital marketing. What's SEO? With paid ads, I understand, right? You give money to Google, leads come in. You stop the faucet, no more leads. Whereas, SEO, and what does SEO mean in 2025? But that we should leave that at some other time.
Yeah. So I think, if I only had $2,000 just now, I would absolutely go into paid ads straight away. Now, why would I say that? Because I can get leads today. If I set the campaign up, I get money, cash flow, shit coming in now. Now, I think also it proves the business model actually works. What you have actually sells. You're charging the right pricing, you've got the right call to actions and all that shit on your website. So I think for a number of reasons, I would absolutely put that money into pay-per-click. Now, obviously being experienced, I can confidently say you should get a return on investment on that, unless you're overpriced or, your product shit or whatever it may be. And then when you start to get that cash flow coming in, I think the long-term strategy would always be to implement some SEO into the mix. But I just think if I've only got $2K a month, do I want to start from scratch, investing in stuff, and I'm not going to see any kind of cash flow or anything coming in, for the next 4, 5, 6 months or whatever it may be? Of course, I don't want to wait that long. And I think, for that reason alone, it absolutely has to be pay-per-click first. I think I would say to anyone, SEO is a much longer term strategy, and something I would always advise people as well, Emanuel, is don't just rely on paid ads or SEO or whatever. You want to diversify your traffic, and if you can get traffic coming from your YouTube and your social media and a whole bunch of other stuff, that's the way to go long term. You want to build a brand, you want to have multiple traffic sources, because your AdWords budget may dry up. Your SEO, Google might do an update and kill all of us off. But if you've still got traffic and money and cash flow coming in, you can diversify and get into AI or whatever the next source of traffic may be. But I think pay-per-click is the quickest way to cash flow, and I think we all need cash flow to continue to grow and scale and invest in staff or tools or whatever. So I think absolutely pay-per-click would be the answer for that. And I know that seems strange coming from an SEO guy, but you've got to use common sense. If you're asking for honest advice, I'm going against a lot of other people say, no, SEO, give me my fucking $2,000 a month and things might happen.
I want the impressions and the clicks, not the money and the leads.
Yeah, fuck that.
Said one never.
All about making money, and for me anyway, so I'll stick with that.
It's a business. SEO is just one channel. Another channel is pay-per-click. I would make an argument for meta advertising. That's something I'm more invested myself than PPC. It works for certain type of audiences, right? For certain demographics in certain areas. But that's a topic of another conversation in itself that we should probably have. But no, it's not an easy conversation to talk with somebody that comes in from the SEO, which is the getting the foot in the door sometimes in the conversation. But I always saw myself as a digital marketer with a more the T-shaped formula, which you actually need to be right now, because it's very difficult to present myself as an SEO, but not know about some technical stuff, not necessarily how an app is built, but having knowledge about schema, about servers, about how to check ups on logs and all that, and also how the AI works as well. That's something required. Thank you for sharing that. In the meantime, I do like to see if there are any questions. Please put them in the chat. So we're live also on YouTube, on LinkedIn, I see, on Instagram, and on Twitter. Apparently I need to have a professional account. That's the last thing that I thought about in my life. Coming back to AI, because I know you and we had many conversations along with others of our peers about AI and how it influenced and how it has changed the game. How do you see AI tools? We refer ChatGPT, but not just ChatGPT. I can confirm today I saw more traffic from the likes of Perplexity and other LLMs.
Yeah.
Some of the sites will be surprising. So how do you see that in this new paradigm? And I guess the question is, if you are a junior SEO right now, junior person who wants to get into marketing, into digital marketing, into SEO in the AI paradigm, how would you do it?
I think, it's obviously a really weird time with all of this stuff coming out. There is a big shift happening or going to happen, whatever we want to look at it. AI is here and it's not going anywhere. I was in a fucking driverless taxi the other day here. It's fucking scary how quick these things are going. Like, sitting in the back of a car and this fucking thing is just driving so perfectly. You're just like, Jesus, this is scary. So I think, the world in general, AI technology and everything is really, evolved. And I think for us as marketers, you have to embrace it. Don't get scared of it. I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, AI is going to kill SEO. It's going to do this. It's going to do that." It's not. Like you mentioned there, there's different LLMs. Can we do things and optimize and get in there and feed the LLMs and stuff? Of course we can. Can we use amazing tools to make our job faster, quicker, more efficient, so we're not having to do all this research? And you've got NAN where you can just do basic workflows. Even just basic things like, for me to sit and look at, I don't know, let's say I follow 10 guys religiously on YouTube. I can get their RSS feed, I can get it to go through their transcripts, and I can get it to summarize the kind of trending topics, the videos that work best, what they spoke about, what the fucking tools were, and email me for 9 o'clock in the morning, every morning. And then I can go and create content based on that, or learn based on that, or whatever it may be. Now, I could spend 3-4 hours a day going and researching what everyone said and watching that content. I can use AI to summarize that shit. Boom, boom, boom. So things can happen. Even just basic things like that can get faster, better, more efficient. You can take that information and then plug it into different things and make social media posts about it. It's scary with what you want to use AI for. You can train AI on the tone of your voice or your business voice. For me in particular, I swear a lot. I'm direct, transparent. I can teach the AI to be like that. So and it can be a lot more accurate than me, because sometimes I feel tired, sometimes I feel anxious, angry, pissed off. So AI doesn't do that. So it can actually perform better than me. You know, sometimes I'm just like, oh, you know, I'm not talking well. And
sometimes only.
So I think AI can massively perform better, faster, more efficient. And you know, why wouldn't you want to work smarter using that technology? So I get really excited. I know guys like you as well, Emanuel, and you know, a lot of our industry friends really get excited by it. But I also hear a lot of questions where people are scared of it and they feel that it's going to diminish certain tasks and stuff. I still think you'll need human beings to operate this stuff and learn it and learn how to manipulate stuff and all that kind of stuff. And I see that as where SEOs have got an opportunity to learn something and get in and be more of a architect or an engineer or a master manipulator, whatever you want to call yourself. And for me, it's like going back to the start of SEO. You know, my thing was like, how can I manipulate this shit? How can I get my website up here? Then the maps came out. How can I fucking make sure my map is up there? And it's all manipulation. Now it's, how can I get AI to spit my name out as the right answer? How can I get it to spit out my content, tell people that I'm the best, or whatever it is, you know, whether you're a carpet cleaner, whether you're this or whether you're that, it's the same shit. It's the exact same fucking shit. And for me, it's exciting times. And like you say, Emanuel, or you said earlier, you're working harder now than ever because of this shit. But that is because you're learning, you're developing. You know, there will come a point where you can literally sit by the pool and you've got your NAN or your make or whatever, you know, fucking Python scripts and all that shit, doing your fucking daily shit. And you're going to be sat and you're going to check in and go, oh, that's doing this and that's doing that and that's fucking doing this. And I can then sunbathe a bit more and you know, whatever. And that, but you have to dig in deep now, where we all, and I include myself and everyone else in this, we're all learning this AI shit just now from scratch. No one is 10 or 20 years ahead of you right now. People still don't even know what AI is. The general public, you know, feel that AI is just ChatGPT or Jasper or whatever they've maybe looked at 3-4 years ago. It's way better than that, way fucking better. You know, I'm involved in an AI agent, and just to give you an idea of how fucking fast things are moving, there's a lot of lawyers out there, and a lawyer's biggest pain point is they're in court all day. So they can't answer the phone, they can't onboard new clients and all this stuff. You can use an AI agent to correspond. It's like an AI agent receptionist. So it's like without paying for a virtual receptionist, you're using AI to take on the case.
Without the attitude.
And yeah, but it fucking can quote the person whilst the lawyer's in court. So they rather than the lawyer coming out of court, running back to their office, they've got 3 or 4 calls booked in to talk to Emanuel. Emanuel, what's your problem? You know, I've been caught speeding. You know, they get all this. You don't need to do that call now. You can get this fucking AI to do it for you. Get all of the information, quote the person, and get the job done. And, you know, that is how cool it is. You know, and you've got things like HeyGen, you've got things like 11 Labs, you know. I mean, there's just so much out there that people can learn, and joining all of that shit together to make virtual receptionists, to make a virtual version of you, whatever it may be, it's fucking scary. And like I say, going back to it, to take it into a business context, I'm sitting in a taxi and there's no one in that driver's seat, and this fucker takes me from A to B accurately. It can see traffic lights, it can see traffic. It's scary, man. It is fucking like scary good. So yeah, it's exciting.
We're a few years away from flying cars. Kevin has a question. I will come to that. I would want to say, I reminded a question, an answer by Kevin, the person who asked the question that in the chat. But I do want to stay on the topic of AI and talk a little bit about its not dangers. I'm not talking about AI taking over the world and all that Skynet. That's topic for another conversation. But the false impression that many have when it comes to AI generated content, the fact that Google likes it or doesn't like it, that's what's going on. And especially the danger, when I say danger, is how many marketers and SaaS founders have used it to build such tools without knowledge, thinking that it's working, where in fact it doesn't, and it starts creating issues. For example, I've seen somewhere on the internet a meme about how it started and how it's going, about somebody who created the tool bragging about having no developer experience using AI to build it, and after a couple of days, hey guys, I'm seeing all these users in my database. Hey guys, I'm seeing all these malware inside it and all those things. So I believe there's also a big danger in this sense. And if I were to be a junior right now to jump on, I would be very, very careful and try to filter and try to figure out what's best. Because to your point, you mentioned a couple of things. Things are coming back to where they were. It's about who you are. Build that trust with the main entity. It used to be Google. Now all of them, to understand that you are the best answer for the people who perform a certain query, who are looking for your products, who are you looking for your services, and who are looking for some information. And my theory is that remember how Google used to have those 10 blue links and that's it, they didn't have anything. Well, those 10 blue links kind of like transform into those 10 links in the AI overview answer that I found more and more efficient. Let's say at first, the answers weren't that great, were like inviting people to eat glue or stuff like that, but the answer have improved. There's still a long way to go, but have improved significantly. And if you expand the AI overview, in a sense, it gives me the impression of the old search engine result page that was around a few years back, like 10 years or so.
Yeah.
So those are my my two cents on the topic. Kevin asked, maybe you covered because he left. You kind of like covered, but what tips do you give for customers who don't know a lot about SEO to know which providers and consultants know their stuff and which don't? You kind of like address this, but maybe you want to top up a little bit.
I don't know if I can add too much more to it, Kevin. And the reason being is it's very, very difficult to know who talks the talk and who can walk the walk. So there's a lot of consultants who actually know their stuff, or maybe knew their stuff 5 years ago, that are not keeping up to date with current things. And I think it can really be hit or miss. And where I'm able to easily direct people is because I travel a lot to conferences and stuff and network quite a lot. So I've met people and I can see their work. So if for example, we'll talk about Randy, for example, Emanuel. Someone comes to me saying, I need kind of digital PR blast and all that. I'd be like, go talk to Randy. Why would I recommend Randy? Because one, I use him myself. Two, I know hundreds of other people that have used them, and I can hand on my heart say, that man knows what he's doing. He's got the right process, the right system. He delivers, blah, 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 blah. Now, I can do that because I've tried, tested. I know I've had friends try them. So it's easy for me to do that. But if you're blindly saying that to a customer going, I think that guy sounds like he knows what he's talking about, but it could be dog shit. 90% of the time, like I said, you're going to get it wrong because there's a lot of people out there who talk very well in terms of the theory behind SEO, but can they actually do what they claim to be able to do? That's the big problem that everyone faces. And I don't think it's just related to SEO. I think, whether it's selling cars or whatever, who's the best guy to talk to about a car? If that person knows more than you, they're going to sound like they're really fucking intelligent. But if you were to actually take a mechanic with you, they'd be like, he's full of shit. he's just said this, this, and this, and it just sounds like good shit. It's not. It's fucking nonsense. So that happens across all industries in the world. It's not just the SEO related, by the way. So, I don't even know, dude. If I want a plumber coming to my fucking house, it's potluck. If I get 3 guys to come and give me a quote, I'm sitting there going, do I go for the cheapest guy? Do I go for the most expensive guy? I just don't want to pay twice for anything. And even picking a guy to do plumbing, there's just so many bullshitters out there. You just don't know who's fucking full of it and who's not. And, that is the way the world is, unfortunately. So I think if you're going to customers going, he knows, and he knows, and he knows, and you don't really know these people, and you've never met them, you've never seen their work, you're in real trouble at that point. So there is no quick, easy way I can help you out of that one, Kevin. Unfortunately, you're going to have to connect, network, hear what people say, and you can't just turn around to someone like Emanuel, for example. Emanuel, you seem to know what you're talking about. Show me your fucking client work and all that. You're going to say, go fuck yourself. I'm not showing you my clients. You need to build that rapport. And I think, these things happen at events, at bars, in masterminds or whatever. They don't happen publicly on here. I could have a conversation with Emanuel on here, and I could have a conversation with Emanuel on WhatsApp or in private or whatever, and he's going to potentially get a hell of a lot more information than he would publicly on here, because I don't want to shoot myself in the foot or give too much away in terms of my websites or whatever. Not because I don't want to be transparent. There's just a lot of malicious people out there as well who would maybe try and do shit or whatever. So I think you've also got to take that into account as well, that even if you look at someone, they may be withholding information because they don't want to get negative attacks on their shit and all that stuff as well. So because they're being withholding doesn't mean they don't know what they're doing as well. So on the flip side of, there's guys out there saying good stuff and they can't really perform, there's actually quiet guys out there who are giving out generic basic information, but they're deliberately withholding, if that makes sense. So that's where it makes it really difficult, mate. So hopefully that gives you some form of answer, but it's not perfect.
I'm laughing because I was on a couple of calls back in my agency days where the prospect, the client, brought in his younger, better known, who knew better person to ask questions that verify my knowledge, my expertise in SEO. And I think they printed out something from Neil Patel or something like that, because you can see them having the questions, and I would simply answer them, and they were not expecting, probably going through the process of interviewing other companies, other SEO experts, and being able to actually get a straight answer, and being able to actually, and people tend to appreciate when you don't have an answer and don't know. I don't know. I never been in this situation. I never worked in your market. I don't know how it is in Calgary, for example, or how it is in Texas or stuff like that, how competitive it is. And they tend to appreciate that.
Yeah.
What would you say on the topic of keep going with clients? What would you say with somebody who has been burned and don't really trust marketers and see all of us as
scammers? Just see it. That it's very common. The chances of someone coming to you out there, they've had their fingers burnt. Someone's taken probably a lot of money, whether it be through a website, whether it be through marketing, whatever. I think that's very, very common. And unfortunately, you need to basically try and handhold and encourage and nurture them along to believing and giving it another chance again. And I totally get it, from the client's perspective. If you've had your fingers burnt, and it can happen multiple times. I know people have had, 5, 10 times they've been, rob blind. And I'm not talking just for a couple of grand, you're talking a lot of money. And I get it why they go, fuck SEO. I'm going to go to something that, like pay-per-click or whatever. So it's about nurturing them along, maybe giving them case studies, maybe even just doing parts of the job that they fail at and stuff like that, just to get your foot in the door. And then once you build that trust, you can then start to say, well, I can do this, I can do that, I can do that as well, and take all of that stuff off their hands. Because a business owner in general doesn't really want to know the ins and outs of SEO. They just need to know that you can deliver, you can perform, and all of that kind of stuff. And if they can get a return of investment on that, they're probably quite happy to pay. But the reason a lot of people actually get their fingers burnt, in my opinion, is because there's so many entry-level SEOs undercharging for what they do. And they're charging $300 a month to do SEO, and they're making it sound like $3,000 worth of work. But at $300 a month, you're lucky to have enough money for 3 links, let alone anything else. You can't perform on that unless you invest your own cash into a client's business, which you're never going to do. It's impossible for that shit to work. So, what I would also be saying to clients as well is, again, going back to being transparent, like, dude, you need to spend 3, 4, 5K on this. Look at your competition. Look at the links they're building. Look at the digital PR they're doing. Look at the content they're producing. Look at this. Look at that. Look at they get little satellite websites. They've got 14 GMBs. They've got this. You can show the client that, going, look, that we can do this, but it costs X, Y, or Z, and price it accordingly. And if you do that and you're making profit, you can deliver. It's a fucking no-brainer. But you've got to be charging the right rate, and it's educating the client that and the client will look back going, well, that prick said he could do all of that for £300, and you're like, there's no way you can do all of that for £300. If that guy could do all of that for £300, I promise you, I would give that guy everything tomorrow if he could deliver on that £300, because I've just white labeled everything that guy done if he was able to perform. I just know it's not humanly possible. And I think you've got to then educate the client as to a bit more about what you do, why you're doing it, the timescales that are involved, and being that transparent way. They're like, oh, everything you actually say, Craig, makes sense. So I want to work with you. Let's try it out and build a relationship from there. So it's it's a bit of education, it's a bit of hand holding, whatever, and it's painful because I don't need to do that when I go and get my car serviced or whatever it may be. I just, dude, can you service this car? Can you do the pro? I don't need to know what screwdrivers you used and fucking all this. Just fucking service the car, give me my bill, and my car just keeps working. It's the same for a business owner. They don't need to know all of that. But at the start, if they've had their fingers burnt, I feel that they do need to know all of that, because that is what builds trust.
I can't add anything more after that. Simply, one of the reasons why I wanted to have this webinar and this topic is because things have changed. The paradigm has changed. The market is extremely mature. The market is extremely competitive, arguably all over the world. I'm pretty sure that in an Amazon rainforest, you'll find a couple of GMBs there that do provide any kind of service. And we probably know a thing or one or two of the people who actually went on and verified those GMBs. And, it's not easy. And especially when you come into markets such as New York City, Toronto, Vancouver, I'm assuming London or Edinburgh or any major European city is not less competitive or anything like that. And it does require a lot of effort, financial effort, and also investment in time, because coming back to what I said, if the customer is not involved, unlikely you'll get the same results, the same success as you would if he'll be involved. Especially, right now, AI kind of like helps in a sense, but before that, I used to talk with them if they are a service provider or equipment provider, for example. What are the top problems the clients come back to you? Is it for new parts? Is it servicing? And I had a client, I've discovered that servicing was brought a lot of prospects, a lot of clients that were purchasing from somewhere else and have his business service them. So we developed some content around that, having that conversation, having that transparency, and having that trust that you establish at the beginning is, in my opinion, essential in the success of the campaign. And SEO, as I said, is just one channel. SEO, regardless of how many people think SEO is not a webmaster, SEO is not building sites, SEO doesn't do the email stuff, set up the email or the security stuff. So many times, obviously, you wear that hat, but SEO is search engine optimization. Up until now, it was mostly Google, but it's hard for me to say SEO is just Google at the moment. And I think that's a good thing in the grand scheme of things. It only burdens us, the ones who deal with it. We need to pay attention to more and more. But at the end of the day, I used to say that Google only wants to show their users, the people who perform the queries, the best possible answer for that query. That's it. So one of the biggest companies on the planet, billions, trillions of dollars, and then we know how they make their money by showing the best results. Yeah. Now we need to reverse engineer how to do that, and sounds easy, right? Just put a couple of keywords there, title, get the green light from Yoast, and you're all good to go.
That would be good. It would be good if it did go back to that. I know that obviously worked back in the day, but yeah, I think people are probably, in general, I mean, business owners are fucking unaware of all the little nuances and the little fucking annoying things, and knowledge panels and building trust and entities, and there's just so much more to it now, and it's painful. It's harder for us to rank websites, but people make it sound really easy. And they're like, yeah, it's just content and links, and you're like, right, but what about this, and this, and all of that other stuff? And you're like, right. So how Google look at things now in 2025 compared to they did in let's say 2010, very, very different game. And obviously that means you have to, there's more competition, people are smarter. It just means you have to work harder, and I need to be doing more than Emanuel, by hook or by crook. He could beat me if he really wanted to, but he may need budget, he may need to work harder, smarter, more efficient, and all of that kind of stuff. And it can be done. You literally can beat anyone out there if the budget, the time, and the, like you say, it's the time investment. So delegation. Don't try and think you can do everything all by yourself as an SEO. We all utilize different vendors, different people, different teams, whatever, to help make this whole thing scalable. And going back to it, there's a fucking cost. Whether you've got a team of 5, whether you've got a team of 5 with a whole bunch of VAs underneath that, whatever your team looks like, there's a significant invest in terms of time, money, and stuff like that. And it's not just staff, like you say. Even if you want the kind of advanced version of ChatGPT, 200 quid a month just for that. SEMrush, 200 quid a month. Ahrefs, 200 quid a month, and that's before you buy any links, buy any content, before you do anything. So I think it's those guys that make it sound really easy and really cheap are fucking killing us. They're killing us because it looks like we're the fucking robbers. When you're like, nah, dude, it costs this. And I can tell you why it costs that. And I can tell you why that guy can't perform for 300 quid. But, when the business owner doesn't know, they're always going to look at price and go, the most expensive guy's incorrect, he's a crook.
Yeah, and you forgot to mention that you buy links, you create content, you pay for tools, but you also need to make some money out of it.
Talking about teams and all that shit. What about yourself? What about fucking your overhead, your office? Shit like that. So, people, SEOs in particular, very often forget themselves as well. You've got to make money. So, yeah.
You first, that it won't be a value if you provide if you don't get compensated accordingly for your time and for your effort. And in time, and sooner rather than later, you will build some I forgot the word I'm looking for, resentment towards the client, and even towards the work, and you'll soon get burned out. And went on and go and do something else. We're actually after the 1 hour mark. So if you have any last questions for Craig before we sign off, please put them in the chat. Now, Craig, you have a couple of, let's say somebody saw you today. Let me have a consultation because you mentioned. How can people reach out besides Googling your name, and what's the best approach to get in contact with you?
Just go to my website, craigcampbellseo.com. Whether you want to just look at stuff on YouTube, I've got a YouTube channel which is listed on there. Social medias are on there. Sometimes I put some information in social media. And obviously, if you wanted consultation, that's there. The mastermind is there if people want to come in and learn and all that stuff. Whatever, or like I say, there is, I think, about 1,300 videos on YouTube, covering pretty much anything to do with SEO. And yeah, like I say, I don't do client work. As such, I can help you, in terms of guidance, consultancy, education and stuff, but and I'm more than happy to do that. And whether you've got problems scaling your team, whether you just need a second set of eyes, these kind of things are where I kind of feel that I fit into the market now. Don't come to me if you're expecting someone to write you 500 pages of content and shit like that, because I'm past that. I'm too lazy for that shit. But go to Emanuel for that or whatever. But nah, I think that's kind of what I offer there, and you can find that on that website. And hopefully, it helps in some way. So it's just all for me about trying to give back. And if someone does need a bit of consultancy, a bit of whatever, I love that. I love seeing people grow, and doing different things. And like you said at the start, Emanuel, if you say to me, Craig, can you come on? I'm doing this thing and all that. Sure, I'll come and fucking help you. I like that. And it's, I think it's a good thing to be doing, and that's kind of where I'm at just now. So I'm not here to pitch you anything, not here to try and force anything or sell. But if you want to reach out and just ask me something as well, shoot me a message on social media. And I'll do my best to get back to you.
There's value in that, because I found myself didn't know what to do, and I Googled it and you showed up, right? The videos that you put out there, the tutorials, the fact that you are one of the first to actually share the screen in your recordings and say, click this, click that, don't click this, do that, you always do this. So that's very important, and not a lot of people. Craig, thank you so much. I highly encourage everyone who's watching this to go and follow Craig, especially on his TikTok account, because he's getting more and more traction in there, and he's transitioning into more than just the SEO and digital marketing consultant, but hopefully a public figure that will give you those $1 million endorsements sooner rather than later. As said at the beginning, I wouldn't be much of a marketer if I wouldn't encourage you to go back to howaboutsmarketing.com and subscribe to the newsletter, subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you'll see the past recordings, further future announcements, and many of the good things that I plan to do in the upcoming months, because I do want to have this How About Marketing Hub as a trusted source for everyone to get better at their marketing. Howaboutsmarketing.com. Thank you so much for everyone who attended the live. Thank you so much for those who are watching the recording. And thank you so much, Craig, for everything. Enjoy the conference.
Thank you.